Hey, what's going on? I want to thank Coach Bandstra for having me on. I think we share some similarities in that some of these older, more traditional offenses are harder to come by. There's always old footage, but there's so many questions that come along with that old game footage, especially when it comes to line play, blocking assignments, blocking rules, yada yada yada. So I'm excited to do this. I'm not ashamed to attach my name to a traditional style offense. You know, I'm on the defensive side of the ball now, and I'll talk a little bit about things that I've noticed. I consider myself to be a disciple of my high school coach. His name is Chris Sinkovich, and I played for him at Las Vegas High School, and he's a Hall of Fame high school football coach. He went on to coach at UNLV. He coached receivers at the University of Arkansas, so spent some time in the SEC, and then finished up at the FCS level. So um, I played after high school. I went to the California Junior College ranks. I played at Feather River Community College, and then from there I went to a D2 school, University of Mary, that's in Bismarck, North Dakota. I redshirted there and kind of saw the light getting a little dimmer. I was just kind of running out of steam. So I transferred to University of St. Mary in KCAC conference and finished out my career there. After football, I joined the United States Army, where I did about 15 years, 2 trips over to Afghanistan. And I bring that up simply because it's going to make a lot more sense when I describe how I ended up at the Wishbone offense and some different variations of it. So I did about a little over 7 active and a little over 7 in the reserves. Uh, my last 2 years of my reserve service obligation, I was coaching middle school. I wanted to hop in at the varsity level, but because I still had that monthly weekend obligation, it just wasn't feasible. So I kind of started helping out at the middle school level as a defensive coordinator and things like that, kind of cut my teeth and kind of help out with the varsity where I could, and then eventually kind of took over the varsity offense with offensive line primarily and the offensive coordinator. So then after 3 seasons at the high school level, I made the jump to college. So currently I'm a defensive assistant at Rocky Mountain College. We play in the Frontier Conference of the NAIA. That's a little bit about myself. We'll get rocking on why the Wishbone. That's my Twitter. I never had a Twitter before I went into the college ranks, and I did. It was a wake up call for me to realize that how much stuff football related actually happens on Twitter. So I'm very active on there now, but that's probably the easiest way to communicate with me. Uh, okay, we're going to start this off with 2 quotes that I think are very relative to this offense. My experience in football and going to a lot of clinics is there's a lot of smart guys in football now. So George Patton, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week. I bring that up now because, especially when it relates to kind of the tradition in the Army, is that intensity trumps a lot of things. Intensity can trump mistakes. We call it violence of action. And then Nick Saban said something about the Wishbone. The Wishbone might make a comeback because before too long, all the coaches who remember how to stop it will be dead. So we'll talk a little bit about. I bring that up in a different form later on. The advantages that something like this can create for you. So here's my personal program philosophy when I was at the high school level. This is really kind of where I this was like the centerpiece of kind of our intent. Less scheme, more attitude. At that level, I really wasn't interested in drawing up an elaborate 80 play playbook. I wanted our kids to really be effective with a base amount of plays that we could get tons of repetitions on in practice, and that's where confidence comes from, repetition. So it's hard to build a culture around an 80 play playbook. I think teams at the high school level specifically, identity is very important. And I remember the conversation we had. We were frustrated because we didn't jump right into the Wishbone my first season there. We were kind of trying to do some spread stuff, and I'll talk about that later too. I'm skipping around here because I'm freelancing a little bit, so forgive me. But one of the questions that got brought up in a pretty heated coaches meeting, some of them can be pretty heated, which was, uh, 4th and 3, 4th and 4, game on the line, you have to convert. What play are you running? And a couple guys, you know, on our staff drew up about 7 different plays, and I basically said that's our problem. Is there should be 1, maybe 2 plays on a 4th and 4 game on the line. You're going to run the play that your kids are most confident running under pressure. They can run it against any front in any weather. We're in Montana, so we have to take that into consideration, especially if you plan on playing deep into the playoffs. So next point, have a handful of plays your kids can run blindfolded against multiple fronts in any weather. Line of scrimmage is more important than your quarterback. And I realize that statement right there is very, it can be controversial in today's game. Today's game is a very quarterback-centered a game. A lot of these offenses are really based around the quarterback. I'm in a small school at the time. I'm lucky if I have 35 kids on the team total. So for me, we were going to be able to dictate the success of our team through building, prioritizing the offensive line over a single position. Toughness and violence over precision. And I wanted to center our offense around the availability of talent. And we had more talented ball carriers than talented quarterbacks. And I talked to an old ball coach from Virginia about this. I can't recall his name. I found him on YouTube and got a hold of him. And I was really struggling with making the transition from this spread style that we were trying. And he said, he asked me a really good question. If you were going to coach at that high school for 10 years, how many quarterbacks do you think you would get that could legitimately throw like the 10-yard out to the field? And I said 1. And he said, okay, out of that 1 quarterback, if he's elite, he starts for you for 3 years. So 7 out of your 10 years, you don't have that kid. Are you going to build an offense for the 3 years you have him, or are you going to build an offense for the 7 years you don't? And that kind of pushed me in this direction to really kind of change the way we were doing things. So I got a checklist before I go any further. These are some questions that I find myself, I don't want to say in arguments, but these traditional offenses, they're kind of a point of controversy nowadays with a lot of people. And so I would ask you, are you more concerned about winning or winning your way? When I did the Wishbone, we put it in, we were really gaining momentum on it. We went up to an away game to a traditional power school. They weren't quite as powerful as they used to be. But it was an old power plant town. So it was like a boom town in Montana. And when we lined up in our offense, the PA announcer had said, oh, they're lining up in the 1978 Oklahoma Sooners Wishbone, and everyone laughed. And they weren't laughing at the end of the game, I can assure you that, because we ran for almost 400 yards on them. But that's just a story of what people really think about this. Some people think about this offense, these style, the flex bones, these traditional wing tee. I think they forgot how effective these offenses were when they were in their prime. So another story, now I'm on the defensive side of the ball at the small college level, and the flex bone triple option is very prevalent in this level of football. And we were playing a school that just made the switch to the triple because they're in a really difficult location to recruit. They have some outlying circumstances that sort of pigeonhole them to be less talented. And a great move by them because they can create advantages for themselves facing the flex bone. And I cannot tell you how much we emphasized to our kids that week of preparation about cut blocks, about how fast the midline hits. And these kids have never seen the triple option in high school. They don't understand how effective and how violent a cut block is. And how you have to build habits on the defensive line to protect yourself and still be effective at the point of attack. And this team beat us. And you could tell the bus ride home was dead silent, that they couldn't believe what had happened. And I've noticed through my talks with a lot of coaches that there are many offensive coaches that look down on these old school offenses, but I can tell you the defensive coach's reaction to game planning against it tells a different story. In the defensive meeting rooms, the weeks of game planning against, for example, a flex bone triple option team, it's like a quiet anxiety. and it's a tall task. You're essentially abandoning all your traditional rules in your in your defense, and you're asking your kids to basically learn a brand new defense with brand new tags, brand new calls, brand new assignments that really exist outside of what they've been learning. And then there's always a hangover, it seems like. After the game, you ask them to dump everything they learned and go back to what they were normally doing. And that's a tall order for an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to do. And there's been plenty of success. I've listed a couple here of teams that either run the straight flexbone triple option or some kind of version of it. You know, have the academy schools. Georgia Tech, when Paul Johnson was there, he beat Georgia a couple times. Go back and look at some of those teams and the rosters that he fielded. There's a lot of NFL guys on those squads. Friends University does a really good job. They're in the KCAC, they're a flexbone team. Harding, multiple national championships, if I'm not mistaken, at the D2 level. And a couple years ago, Brian Bohannon was at Kennesaw State, and they were running a version of this as well. He's no longer there. I think he's at Georgia Tech now, but those are some other teams that you can check out. Not really Wishbone, but traditional offense. And there's also a famous Nick Saban post-game interview where he's talking about Georgia Southern. Alabama actually ended up beating Georgia Southern, but they gave up 400 or 500 yards on offense to the flexbone triple option, and Saban was not happy about it. Okay, so here's some stuff that we see at the small college level that if kids struggle with this at the college level, they're definitely going to struggle with it at the high school level. And it's the same things that I saw and noticed at the high school level. So we struggle with offenses who run and play action out of 12 and 21 plus personnel. Kids are used to seeing 10 and 11. That's just where the game's gone the last 10 to 15 years. When there's two tight ends or two fullbacks or a tight end and a fullback on the field, you're asking guys to get down into run fits that aren't used to getting into run fits. And that's where things can get a little hairy. DBs, a thorough understanding of how leverage works with run fits inside the box. So your traditional rock down safety is not as comfortable playing in the box as they were 15, 20 years ago. When they take on an offensive lineman, they're at 100-pound disadvantage if they're lucky. And that means they have to utilize some techniques in their athleticism or a combination of the two to get into their assigned run fit. DB is understanding the different run fit roles for play side, backside run fits, right? So play side, your leverage at the point of attack. If, for example, if you're a force player, and if you're a backside run fit player, how do you recognize you're slow to go and sitting at the cutback? Now, these are easy for linebackers because that's where linebackers live, but then we get into the physicality of the game. The linebackers are smaller than they used to be. They've had to cover space. So the linebackers' ability to close gaps physically versus offensive line and fullbacks for the entirety of a game, not just the first quarter. And good old eye discipline at every level, really. But recognizing pullers and misdirection, that used to be pretty standard for linebackers. And I see it a lot. It's tough for kids to recognize pullers now. The point of this slide is that if college players are struggling with this, average high school players are going to be pretty terrible at it. So these can create advantages for you with these traditional offenses like the wing T, for example, a lot of misdirection. Okay, here we go. Meat and potatoes. So a lot of the old traditional Wishbone videos that you can find, there's a lot of triple option. I did not run option out of this. I built this specifically for a power running game. Because what's old is new again. Understanding reactionary trends in the game. I use this example a lot. So Afghanistan, when I was there, and I'm sure there's a lot of football coaches that were vets, and they have a similar experience, I'm sure, but it seemed like it was a high-tech battle versus a low-tech battle when it came to improvised explosive devices. And this is just how the game sort of mirrored this. So for example, the first version of the IED was pretty much command wire. They would hardwire with a switch, and boom, right? And then we started implementing things to combat that, and they got less successful. So then they programmed a cell phone, and they would dial up a number, hit send, and then it would detonate. And then so we invented the Duke system, and the Duke system sort of is a signal blocker. Well, that once that was effective, they went to pressure plates, and you can see where it's just one thing's reacting to the other. And when you relay that to football, when you relate that to football, what's big is now small. What was big is now small. Linebackers used to be bigger, defensive ends used to be bigger, safeties used to be bigger. The game was played a little bit more at the line of scrimmage, and that's sort of when offenses went to the spread, defenses reacted. They got smaller, they got faster, and so there's this lost skill set. There's this lost. I don't know how you would describe it. Some people would probably say a lost toughness, um, but the Wishbone takes advantage of this. It takes advantage of less experience playing at the line of scrimmage, smaller players, and a less kids that are used to a less physically demanding game. Okay, this offense is going to empower your most important position group, the offensive line. In my experience, I've never met an offensive lineman that did not like to run block, that did not like things like traps and pulling on counter or anything like that. So this is really going to put them in the driver's seat and empower them to really impact the game physically. Um, it's in my experience coaching the O line, it's harder to preach toughness on the line of scrimmage when your kid's kick stepping the entire game. There are guys that are violent in pass pro. Your typical high school offensive lineman, not the one that's committed to Ohio State. Your typical offensive lineman in high school has a hard time figuring out how to do that. So I'd err on the side of, well, we're going to run the ball and let you be the hammer instead of being the nail. This also for me personally, this pairs well with team identity. I wanted a tough physical brand of football. That's who I am. That fits my personality. That fits my practice style, and really, it's more authentic to kind of where my path, how I got here, and the things that I've been through. So it also makes promoting the weight room more applicable. If you play a tough physical brand of football where you run the ball, you're committed to run the ball. That is ammunition to get your kids into the weight room. We have to be able to move the line of scrimmage. Um, so that's motivation you can use to help hammer the weight room culture. I like this offense and I like running the ball too because cut blocks are a great equalizer. And you want to know why I cut block? Because I played linebacker my whole life and I hated getting cut. And it is different now than when I played. You could cut outside the box when I played, and some other things have changed regarding that. But you can still cut block off the line of scrimmage, and I will cut all day, every day. I am not ashamed of it. Some guys seem like they're too proud to cut. I don't care. If I have a kid who's smaller on the offensive line, and I need somebody to disappear, I will have them cut block. I will also have them cut block because 3/4 of cut block, it's very physically taxing, and we're trying to wear defense down. I like this offense also because I can measure success in very simple terms. We used to hammer this home with our kids. What's a successful play? 4 yards. That's what we need. 4 yards. And then lots of ball carriers, limited quarterback wide receiver talent. Every coach would love to throw the 10-yard out. I would love to do that, but you don't always have that available in your school if you can't go recruit that. So you're typically you're going to have a lot more reliable ball carriers than you are quarterback wide receiver talent to be able to do those sorts of things. And in my opinion, I don't want to jump ahead because I think I talk about that. So easy base blocking rules, and these rules can be implemented at all levels. We started in middle school, and we didn't have a freshman and JV team at a smaller school. It's K through 12, which is another reason why I felt this was effective, because in order to be competitive, I was going to have a couple 10th graders on the field, and hopefully not on the offensive line, but you never know. So I wanted something that by the time they were in 10th grade in a position to compete, they had repped this offense and the base rules in this offense for a couple years. So through their middle school years and then through their freshman year. And also too, being at a small school, I would love to have a staff of 10 or 11 football guys. That's all they think about. That's all they do. They love it, but that's just not the case. some staffs are made up of parents who are volunteering to coach because their son's on the team, and they're not going to have the football IQ of a coach who lives it. And these rules that we'll go over are something that a volunteer coach can learn very easily and teach at that level. So that way, everything is streamlined. Defense is hesitant to stunt. In my experience, I know one of the ways we attack zone is you stunt into zone. Stunts are going to give a zone running game problems because of the power running game. In my experience, they want dedicated run fits. A lot of the defenses that we went up against in high school, they would rather just put a guy in a gap and have that gap taken care of and don't stunt out of it. So answers for most defensive attacks. I'll show you some simple things that you can do that will answer kind of what we've seen. Tons of stress on secondary players in run fits. I brought that up before, and in coverage, because essentially what teams are going to do out of the wishbone is they're going to put 5 on the line. They're going to back it up with 3 linebackers, and they're going to hang a corner. They're going to hang their corners off the edge, and their safety is going to be their single deep player. So it puts a ton of stress on those secondary players. For me, one of the biggest advantages or the biggest assets that this offense brings to me is I'm able to control the clock and dominate possession time, which puts a lot of pressure on the opposing offense to score every possession. They know that every time I touch the ball, I'm eating 5 minutes off the clock, even if I don't score, because I'm moving the ball 5 to 6 yards at a time. And I'm going to limit their possessions. We also didn't have a very good defense, so that also played into our advantage. But I mean, our rule of thumb was we're not snapping the ball with over 5 seconds on the play clock. So we're going to keep the clock running for as long as we can, and we're going to drain as much of it as we can in between every snap. The reality of high school football is most defenses lack the necessary amount of defensive linemen and linebackers to be successful at stopping this. And your job is really easy. You just have to find where the weak link is. And I'll show you some formations here. I mean, it's not elaborate, guys, but if you do have a guy that can run, you have a receiver that can run, it's going to pretty much guarantee a one-on-one matchup with him. So that can open up some doors for you. Okay. I feel a little bit like a salesman here, but that is kind of what I'm trying to do. So when I started coaching the offense, I wanted to do a lot of 10 and 11 personnel, mostly out of nub and nasty formations. Nasty is there's a lot of different people call it a lot of different things. It's just where your wide receivers are really tight splits close to the line of scrimmage. And I like a nub gives us a lot of problems too at the college level, because you can essentially run power to one side and all your spread concepts to the other. So that's really where I wanted to exist. The problem was we got 3 games in, we couldn't get a rhythm. I had my best athlete at quarterback, so I was essentially trying to get +1 of the run game out of it. And because of the nature of the offense, we'd go 3 and out. I'd look up at the clock. We'd only take 40 seconds off. And it's like, your defense is playing a ton of football and it just wasn't working. So also too, it didn't fit my personality. I brought this up earlier. I'm a grinder. My style is I want to inflict physical punishment on defenses. I want it to take them 2 weeks to recover from playing us, because with that comes a psychological effect, a reputation. And then long term, I couldn't control the talent in the building, but I could control the toughness of our football team. So I wanted to focus on that and then build an offense around being tough. And I felt long term, like I brought up the question that older ball coach asked me, I felt that it would be a lot easier to open up from the power running game and insert a passing offense when that talented quarterback, if he ever did show up, rather than vice versa. Having a culture built around a spread offense, and then losing the quarterback to drive it, and then trying to build a culture around a power running game. I was also looking for a lot of consistency on offense, and in a system that was married to our program's emphasis on a commitment to the weight room, which means pretty much run the ball. Okay, this is just a snapshot of our success. So the school that I took over, a 30-year playoff win drought, hadn't won one playoff game in 30 years. Two straight quarterfinals appearances in 3 years. 2022 was our first year running the Wishbone. We did it our third game in, so these numbers are probably minus 2.5 games in terms of stats that we managed to run for 2,300 yards as a team. Made it to the quarterfinals, won the first playoff game, like I said, in 30 years. Then 2023 was really when we were shot out of a cannon at 3,400 yards team rushing. I had a 2,100 yard rusher in 11 games. And 3 kids on that team are now playing at the college level. What I noticed when we started really promoting offensive line play and the offensive line men at our school, really making them the centerpiece of what our program was about, tracking pancakes. They got special pancake platoon hoodies. We really did a lot to incentivize the big guys. We had big guys showing up to play football. You need the big guys in your high school to come play football, period. And then, you're always talking to the other coaches that you compete against. And the feeling was that our program was building a reputation as a really tough team to compete against. And as a football coach, I think that's a really good compliment when other coaches who you compete against view your program as tough, even on down years. Okay, I talked about this before, so I won't beat a dead horse. Our goal is to eat time of possession, move the chains. The pace of this offense is slow. I'm never snapping with over 5 seconds. This means you got to plan for your linemen to hold their water. They got to pay attention to the snap count. You cannot get behind in this offense. You can get behind schedule in this offense. It's typically punt or you're in an obvious pass situation. But I like the long time in the stance because if you have an offensive line that's played with each other for a while, they're going to be able to communicate, make checks, and we'll go over some of that stuff. Automatic though, second and short, shot play. Even if you don't have the guys to really be successful at it, use a second and short to throw a ball down the field to keep the top back off the defense, keep them from loading the box. I would have done a better job at that. If I could go back, I probably would have done a better job of that. So this is our base formation. Nothing special here. This is what we called flex. We lived in this just because I didn't have the receiver talent, and I didn't want to get a guy out of the box that was an overhang secondary player anyway. If I take this guy and move him out here, I'm basically only getting a defensive back out 4 yards because he's already overhanging. To me, that wasn't a good trade-off. I'd rather have a bigger, more physical guy in here and force this little guy to come up and make a tackle. Here's an option if you have a second and short and you got one speedster out here that you want to chuck the ball. That's going to give you, if the safety's out, then maybe you have a check to run. I can talk about some of that a little bit later for game planning ideas. And then there's a little bit more wide open. Now you can kind of see where this turns into the I formation. You bring one of those backs down, and then you're probably better off to balance your formation out and get into the I. So we never ran this. This is just an example to kind of show how things they kind of start to meld together. Okay, here's your numbering system. This is what I used. And this is also why I couldn't use the language that the slot T guys used when we get to the slot T portion. So typical football methodology, your even numbers are going to take you to the right, odd numbers are going to take you to the left. Now these are your back positions. Okay, so your fullback is the 1 back, your running back on the right is the 2 back, running back on the left is the 3 back. So for example, one of our most popular runs was 36. That's the 3 back aiming at the 6 hole. So, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure there's some smart guys in the room here. This is going to make total sense to them. So, and that helps these guys, and they're dog tired. They don't have to think. I watch a lot of Alex Gibbs because I love the zone. And he tells a story when he was coaching with Woody Hayes at Ohio State about how Woody Hayes preferred the numbering system because he wanted to tell his running backs exactly where to go. And you could see why somebody like Alex Gibbs didn't really adhere to that system with the zone. There's a lot more freedom for your running backs in the zone. But in high school, I want to be very transparent with my expectations. I'd rather have a kid run into the sixth hole uh, and have the sixth hole be clogged and tell him to make an adjustment than kind of give him a free ticket to do whatever he wants. Now, we did have a kid here. You'll see him on some film that we're going to watch. I did have a special kid here his senior year, and I did kind of give him, I took the reins off him a little bit to be creative, but you're not going to have kids like that every year. Okay, so here's your base O-line rules. Everything you do is gonna factor off of this. It's again nothing fancy. Inside over linebacker. Every single person is gonna have the center has some exceptions because he's the center and either he's gonna be able to dictate different fronts and how they're reacting to him. But every other guy is inside over linebacker. That means he's checking to his inside. Am I covered? No. Looking over the top of me, like head up. Am I covered? No. Okay, go to second level. It's that simple. You could probably get a hold of some of the kids I coached 3-4 years ago and ask them what our O-line rules are. They're working construction now, and they'd probably be able to tell you Ioli because I just hammered it home constantly. Now your center, he's checking head up first. If there's nothing head up, then he's going to look inside on the play side, and if there's nothing there, then he's going to check to see if his backside guard needs help. If backside guard doesn't need help, then he just goes to linebacker. 18-inch splits. That's our standard. Foot to foot on counter pulls. I'll show you what that looks like, but all I'm trying to do there is just shorten the distance. We would do GT counter. I want them foot to foot, just to shorten the distance between them. And I don't care about the tell. I don't care if linebackers know that we're pulling. Doesn't bother me. Shoulders on the center's hip. So all these guys are going to be backed up just a hair. My fullback 3-point stance, heels at 3. Really, you might experiment with this a little bit in practice, but I want him as close to the quarterback as possible because he does a lot of kick out blocks, and I just want him to be able to run downhill and hit the kick out. And then a lot of the old traditional wishbone videos that you watch, your running backs are in 3 points. I didn't do that. I want them to be able to see. So we put them in 2-point stance, heels at 7, inside shoulder on the butt pad of the offensive guards. Okay, here's some opportunities for you when we talk about in-game adjustments. We're going to pin pull every opportunity we got. On film, it looks like a completely different play. Our play side guard is the one that typically got the pin pull, and it looks like belly. So offenses or defenses are game planning for 2 plays. It's really 1 play with a built-in pin pull. We don't block corners. We want to make corners tackle and cut option. If an offensive lineman feels like cutting, he just needs to make sure that he's calling out our cut call so we don't get a chop block penalty. That's it. But I really gave our offensive line the freedom to do things like this and start them out young because I'd rather them work out the kinks of this type of communication in middle school than their senior year in high school. All right, here we go. Here's our base play. This is 36 smash. This is an example against a base front. I didn't see a lot of base fronts versus a wishbone. That's a 4-man over here. But essentially, here's all your rules. They're just following their basic inside over linebacker. So the skull means those guys are getting cut. Your fullback has the kick out on the end, and you have a lead block with the 2 back. He's typically his eyes are inside. Again, we don't block corners. I want this guy to try to make the tackle against my ball carrier. 36 smash. I'll talk a little bit more about this play, and I have some footage of it. Here's against a 50 front. This is really what I saw. Most defenses attacked us here with this base 50. We're just cutting everybody on the inside based on their rules. And then if we can, we're going to try to pin pull on the backside. And that's just to get a better angle on this Will who's going to be flying. It's going to be a lot harder if he follows his base rule and then he flies up and tries to get up here. I'd rather just cut him and have him wrap. There's another pin pull opportunity here. We'll talk a little bit about that down the road, but nothing else changes. It's just a different front. So we planned for 50 just because there was really fruitless for us to watch a lot of tape in terms of scheme because no other teams ran this. So we really had no idea how a lot of defenses were going to attack us. When we did watch film, it was mostly talent. It was mostly trying to find out who their dominant player was and where they were putting him on the D line, or if he was a linebacker or what have you. So that's why I recommended practicing this against multiple fronts, because you're not going to see a lot of other offenses running this. You're not going to have a lot of information on how you're going to get attacked. We call this the Aggie front. They're basically double A's. We've seen this. It's just 6-man front. I love it when teams put a lot of guys on the line of scrimmage, because it makes our block calls a lot easier for our offensive line. It's funny that we didn't see a lot of base, because I felt like that was the way to attack us with athleticism, basically getting them more offensive linemen up on the second level and then beating them with athleticism. But you can see here, it's just a lot simpler. Now we're putting a lot of pressure on a down block and our kick out with our fullback. But really, once your running back gets second level here, it's a home run. And this is all inside over linebacker here. I drew this up. This is so sorry for the artwork, but this is an example of a double pin pull opportunity. We ran this a lot. And the players just communicate it. They already know when they see this base 50, this is what we're looking like. And this is going to have to work itself out here. You're one back, because he's typically the kick out. But when this belly pulls, he's not going to know. It's just happening between these two dudes. He's just got to be reactionary here. We want big on big here. If I can help it, I don't want my fullback kicking out if I can kick him out with a guard. So he's got to be reactionary. If he sees this dude pull, he just knows he's going to fold up underneath. And I wouldn't make it any more difficult than that. It doesn't need to be any more difficult than that. And then we're pin and wrapping on the backside. Your backside tight end, he's just chasing. I have him going to the buck here, or one of the backside linebacker. But if that guy's gone, we're not chasing guys laterally. He's just moving on to safety. And then your center follows his rules here. So he's head up, so he's going to cut that guy. All right, so I talked a little bit about the culture that I came in on. I really think this offense is beautiful for building a culture of toughness. This is one single clip. This is a rivalry game. I was told. It didn't seem like much of a rivalry. I think our school's in the blue and white here. I think they won this game twice in 20 years. And this school in the black had won multiple state championships. They're 15 miles down the road. So this was the first play of the game, that 2023 season. And we're running 36 smash, nothing fancy, 25 smash actually. So it's just smash to the opposite, to the left side. But they know it's coming. We know we're running it. And this is a culture. This is a big culture change for us. So very, very physical brand of football. You can see there's bodies everywhere. Their best player on the line is against our best player on the line here. Getting walled. That's my best linebacker. Pancaking their best linebacker, and our best player is off to the races. So big statement play, first offensive play from scrimmage. And then here we got a little bit better angle. I apologize for the camera quality. We didn't have a lot of high-tech equipment here, but so this is a playoff game. These are just 36 smash clips. This school right here, this is a Catholic school. They do recruit a little bit. They beat us in the quarters the year before. So you'll see 336 smash plays. And I think this first one here might be a belly pull. So that one looked a little bit different there. You can see this fullback kind of just wraps instead of folds. He just feels it. And you'll see a lot of this too. You'll see this lineman right here, one of these two guys, they try to cut us instead. For me, that's a win for our offense. That's a 1-for-1 trade on the interior line. I want to attack the C gaps more than I want to run inside, because I think it's where you're at your weakest. It's where your corners have to tackle. Here's a second iteration. You can see it a little bit different. Running back decides to hit it. Oh, my bad. Decides to hit it outside here. Again, that's when I was talking about that's a pretty talented kid. I kind of gave him the leeway to do that kind of stuff. My bad. I'm messing up here. Here we go. But that's kind of where the path took him. You can see we cut here at the Y. That's the rule for at least in the state of Montana is you can cut on an inside shade, but you can't cut at an outside angle for the tight end. And you'll see this a lot of bodies on the ground in the interior, and then you attack the edge. All right, so here's our gut play. You have to have, this is your A gap power play. It does change your rules a little bit. I have the rules listed over here in yellow. Teams are definitely scared of the C gap run, so they're going to try to take that away. If they're effective at taking that away, then this is your answer. It's still Ioli rules, but your backside guard, backside tackle, and center, they're looking for A and B gap threats on this backside. If you're going to run, this is 22 gut. We can't let any backside A gap penetration hit. He's gonna crush it. Play side 3 technique is probably getting doubled, and then your fullback is going to lead up to block one of these linebackers, depending on the front. Again, this is a base front. We didn't see a lot of base. So I'll move it on to the next one because this is really what we saw a lot. So we're going to double this nose because we're going to send our fullback up to block the mic. We're going to cut this dude, so it's going to be a tight squeeze. We're not worried about the end. We're faking the 36 smash here, so that end's going to stay with this dude. And then this is nothing fancy. I don't know what this is doing here. This is nothing fancy. This is my bulls are stronger than your bulls, and we're just going to get 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust here. You'd be surprised because of the effectiveness of your smash play that you can hit some really long runs here because defenses are putting a lot of pressure on your edges. And here's your flex gut versus Aggie. I have checked to smash here. There's a way that you can do that. I'll show you how you can insert multiple run plays into one play call, but you don't want to run gut into obviously double A's or double B's. Now, for our run plays, or for our gut plays rather, we tell our running backs, this is an A to B gap dive. You might have to stretch this thing or bend it to B. So for example, let's say this tackle can't get a good cut. What I tell him is wash him, just wash him down, and then our back will wrap it. He'll just bend it a little bit. Coach Sinkovich would say, be a freaking athlete. So that's what I always tell our kids, be a freaking athlete, So it's not an A gap. It's a A to B gap dive play. And here's what it would look like if you had to do it against Aggie. You couldn't get out of the play call. He's going to wash him down or cut him, and then he's just going to bend it. Fullback's going to take path of least resistance. I try to avoid this as much as possible, but I wanted to show it just to see it. It's doable, but your offense has to be a little bit flexible. Here's an example of some gut plays. And it's just physical football. Look, our center, big teaching point for your center here. If he's head up covered, he just needs to get in angle. He doesn't need to drive that guy off the ball. He just needs to get his ass in the running lane. And our center does a really good job, all conference guy. And then once you get second level, it's just hard yards, man. We're not trying to hit a home run here. Get second level, get your shoulder down, and punish some guys. And that's all you should expect out of your gut plays. You can see gap shooting here. You just wash them. Get some guys second level. All right, the counter. I loved this play. We played a game against a high school up on the High Line, really tough school, a lot of tough kids, and we ended up losing this game. But I think I ran 36 counter 8 times in a row, just because We were getting momentum off it. I was breaking 8 yards a pop. Of course, I had some talented kids on the offensive line too. So not much changes. Your backside is all your aioli rules. So that's all they're doing. They're gonna inside over linebacker. The only real technical piece here is we have to account for puller protection. So your fullback has what's called a pause block. He needs to pop out of his stance, move to the right a little bit to clear the quarterback. And as a wishbone guy, you're going to have to figure this out. There's some synergy that has to happen here because your quarterback is doing some spinners to do some hands off, and your fullback has to know just one step to the right or to the left to give the quarterback enough room to get that ball off. But he's going to pick up the 3 technique, and he doesn't have to stone this guy. He just needs to chip this guy. That's all he needs. We're going to cut the interior, kick out the end, and get a big guy moving north-south. And because of the effectiveness of the smash play, which is what your 3-back's showing here, this is typically a successful play. So I think this one's going to be better to just watch. I'll stress you to watch the fullback first to pick up the pause block. So you can see how he just hop steps to the left or to his right, my fault. And then we're not asking him to pancake that 3 tech. He just needs to get on him, pester him. And then we're off and running. We got our edge guy. He's not outside shade of our tight end. He's on the inside. So he's following his aioli rules, which helps us out because then I got 2 big guys on 2 real small guys. But if that end was overhang, then he would just pinch down, maybe go to linebacker, follow his aioli rules, and we'd kick the end out with this first puller. It's nothing fancy. This is old school football. Okay, now here's the one pass play I'm going to show you. 36 counter boot. Now I kind of took this play when I played for Coach Sinkovich at Las Vegas High School. We had 36 zone and we ran 36 counter boot off, a lot of counter boots with the zone run game. So I just threw this in. This is a really effective play for us. Everything's off a counter boot. The only thing that changes really is that your backside or your backside tackle's not pulling. We're only going to show one puller, and he's just going to pick up this end off the pass rush, and then our tackle's going to stay home and stay on that 3 tech. And it's a in this case scenario, our Y would just man block him for 2 seconds, and then he's going to release flat. He's got to release flat down the line, and then we got a backside drag or a climb route from your X. And nothing changes back here with your actions. Everything's the same for the running backs. They're just not getting the ball, and they're going to pick up leakage. And then your quarterback's going to roll out. So I ran this in a lot of pressure situations where I felt like the defense knew we were running it, and it didn't matter. So 36 counter boot. Here it is against this is a 2-point conversion. We have to have it to make it a clean 2-possession game here. And on this one, our tight end, our Y over here, he sinks into the end zone a little bit more than he should have. I think he was more concerned about getting into the end zone, but typically he would just run this flat down that line. You'll see the counter action. It's nothing fancy, man. Pulling that guard, it's not even a full pull for him. You'll see he gets stuff out here, and then he starts patting his feet. Really simple, really effective play off of your power running game. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some challenges you're going to have. You're not going to really get to scout much. So you kind of have to be prepared. You have to practice your full arsenal. That's the one thing that I didn't like. On one end, it made us really efficient at all of our base plays. The bad piece is that I couldn't tailor anything or make minute adjustments to attack a specific defense. QB openings. I forget what that point was. I think I just didn't have a lot of quarterbacks. That's right, QB opening. So your quarterback has to know as he's snapping the ball which way he's opening in order to hand the ball off. And then you can't get behind schedule in this offense. If you get second and long, you need a big run, or you force yourself into a pass situation. Okay, here's some solutions for you for your lack of scout prep. I led off every game with 36 smash. That was our lead-off play. I didn't care who knew it. I mean, everybody pretty much knew it that we played against. The reason why I did it is because I knew it was our primary play, and I knew they were going to do a game plan to stop our primary play. And I was going to be able to diagnose what they were doing on the first play of the game. Here's the caveat, though. You got to run it to your sideline. I didn't have a lot of booth help. So I didn't have an eye in the sky telling me here's what they're doing. So in order to really diagnose that, I needed to run it towards our sideline and get eyes on the defense. Psychologically, I knew that if I got 7 yards at least on our first run of smash, that it was going to be a long day for the defense. They spent their whole week to stop this play. In the very first play of the game, they couldn't stop it. So I'm going to go back to that well over and over again. If they do stop smash, test their A gaps with your gut play. You can utilize play action to look for big plays and momentum. You're going to want to establish counter, and then use the slot. We used the slot T for a tempo change. So one of the things I brought up earlier about this offense is it's really slow, right? We want to bleed the clock, give our time. A smaller school, all of our kids played both ways. That was another reason why I wanted to take a lot of time off the clock. I wanted our kids to be able to rest. So all of our conditioning and practice really centered around a 30-second rest. I need you to go 100%, and then you get a 30-second rest. And then your gains may be small in the beginning. So you might be, hey, I need 4 yards. That's a successful play, 4 yards. And then once you get into the third quarter, those 4 yards are going to become 14-yard runs, 24-yard runs. If you just focus on 4 yards of play, the dam will open. We called it flex combo, but this is what I would encourage you to do, just because you're not going to be able to game plan against the defense, is combine 3 runs into a line of scrimmage check and put that responsibility on your quarterback. So your quarterback is going to bring the line, you'll see how they break the huddle. He's going to bring them up to the line. He's going to check what the defense is doing. If the A gaps are taken, and the B gaps are open, he might feel comfortable running a gut to the B gap. If the C gaps are open, we are running smash and then occasionally pepper and a counter. I had a really smart player at quarterback, and I handed him the reins on flex combo all the time for him to make the right checks. You could also add a check based on free safety position out of one of those open formations, rather run or pass. So be creative. Keep it simple, but there's opportunities there to be creative. Okay, limitation strategies. Keep it simple. These are some things that I used to help mitigate our limitations. All of my linemen were two-way players on defense, so consider this. I didn't have any time on the sideline to make adjustments with my offensive line because they were all playing defense. So it's not like I had a marker board over there and we were able to really go line by line while the defense was on the field. Sometimes I actually had to make corrections during timeouts on the defense. I'd go chat with the O linemen who were on the D line or playing linebacker and say, hey, next time we're on offense, let's do yada, yada, yada. So you can see him working in a really condensed window. Our coaching rule of thumb was if you can't explain something in under 10 seconds, then scrap it until you can get to a marker board. Lack of assistant coaches that understand line play. You might not have any booth support. I didn't. So you might have to start running run plays to your sideline in order to be able to get a good view, a good vantage point of what the defense is doing. Cut block. If you have small offensive linemen because you're at a small school, utilize the cut block. And then here's a sign of a defense that doesn't have an answer is when they start to send 8-man pressures out of a 5-man front. So it's it's basically an all-out blitz. Don't panic. That's a good time to pass the ball, and then you can have a hard count tag in your language. For us, it was dead. So, for example, a play call for a hard count would be flex dead 36 smash on me. The dead means we are not moving until I give you a Monday or Tuesday call, or I say easy. So, for example, our quarterback would break the huddle. He'd come up, give a hard count, said hot, easy, easy, easy. And then he's going to say Monday or Tuesday, Monday's on 1, Tuesday's on 2. And that could be whatever you want it to be, but that's just an example of what we did, right? So another example, hear it again. Quarterback breaks the huddle, walks up to the line, down said hut, nobody moves because they got a dead call. Easy, easy, easy. Tuesday, Tuesday. And then we're back on schedule. Okay, tempo change. So I found some footage of the slot T and thought that just the pace that with which it was ran would be a good 1-2, kind of like a fastball to our changeup. And I got a hold of Liberty Hill High School, their coach, Coach Walker, and he directed me to their offensive line coach, and they were very gracious to me. They sent me their whole playbook with videos to go along with it, and it was quite a daunting task because there is an entire language inside the slot T world. And I didn't adopt that language. I basically watched the plays, looked at their blocking rules, and changed the language so I didn't have to change the language for our kids. I didn't want a whole new language to get installed with this offense. I wanted very minute changes in terms of tempo and alignment, but I wanted to be able to call plays with the same numbering system that they already learned. Uh, I also made sure that I wasn't substituting any different personnel for the slot T offense because I didn't want the defense to be able to prepare for the tempo change. So I wanted it to break the huddle, and then we were snapping the ball in under 5 seconds. Ideally, what our aiming point was 4. Really, I wanted 3, but what you're going to run into with the slot T, if you're in an area that doesn't run a lot of that stuff, is the refs aren't even prepared for it. So you have to explain. I highly encourage you to have a conversation with the refs before the game. We run a hurry up run based offense. Our kids are going to snap the huddle. They're going to break the huddle. They're going to sprint to the line, and we're snapping the ball and right as close to our kids being set for the minimum amount of time of 1 second. So you're gonna run into that, and we did get called for some false starts and a lot of stuff like that, and that's going to be just part of your learning curve. Just stick with it. Your kids will get it down. But what this is going to boil down for you in practice is you're going to be sitting there with a stopwatch, and you're literally going to have to practice breaking the huddle, sprinting up to the line, snapping the ball, reload, do it again, do it again, do it again, and you're just going to have to rep the crap out of it. My plans over the long term were to expand on the slot T over time. I didn't get that opportunity, and then made the jump to college, but I did have the intentions of going a lot more down the slot T rabbit hole and really integrating it with our Wishbone stuff. So here's what your huddle should look like. I recommend it. It's just easier for everybody. Your center hears the play one time and then he's gone. That'll give him time to get up to the line and get set and kind of look at what he's dealing with. That way, when everyone else sprints up to the line, your center's ready to go. He's not handling the ball. He's ready to rock. The quarterback repeats the play one more time. They break, sprint up to the ball. You want to be no longer than 5 seconds from the break of the huddle to the snap of the ball. Your huddle distance is going to have to be about 5 yards. So your kids are going to have to pay attention to that. I already mentioned you're going to have to rep this in practice a bunch. And then here's your base slot T formation. All right. You might have to sacrifice alignment perfections for speed, specifically with this guy, just because when he's sprinting up to the line, sometimes this is going to be a little bit wider. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit tighter. It'll get better with repetitions, but you're going to have to sacrifice something for a faster tempo. I never flipped our slot T formation. We called it Texas. That was part of my expansion. I did want to be able to flip this and run it from both sides. But this was our first year running anything like this. So I didn't want to bite off more than we could chew. What I used this specifically was to get defenses off pace or to drive a stake through their heart if I thought they were gassed. If I felt the defense was gassed, we were going to run. We were going to change the tempo, and I was just going to run them off the field. So it was a good 1-2 punch for you. Okay, I do have some examples of these plays, but here's the packages that I used. Okay, so out of this, all these motions, you're going to be able to run dive and toss out of this. That looks exactly the same. The only thing that changes is instead of handing the ball off to the 1, Your quarterback's going to run with it for a little bit and pitch it to the 3 on the toss. Now, Liberty Hill runs this a lot different than we did. I think Liberty Hill actually tosses it really early and gets their quarterback into the blocking game. I didn't have that guy. So I wanted him to kind of run with it a little bit and then pitch it off and keep him out of it. If you got that guy, then I'd run it more like Liberty Hill, but there's definitely some room to wiggle there. Your dive is simple. It's just a C gap, B to C gap power play. And he's hammered it in there. Here's our power play. It kind of looks a lot like it's basically smash out of the slot T formation. Nothing fancy here. This was a big hitter for us. This ended up being a really, really solid play for us. And I ran this almost exactly like Liberty Hill runs it, this trap. So in our language, this would be Texas 12 trap. One back's getting it, and we're trapping into the 2 gap here. What we did see was a lot of teams were scared of this, so they would just try to pinch and cut underneath our trap. We just teach your guard to just fold with the guy, and then the back will bounce it. And you actually see it on one of the plays that I'll show you. And then we have our counter, which this is very wing T-ish, the way this counter's run. But your quarterback is going to simulate some kind of a toss, and then the ball's on his underhand, handing it off as the 3 back is running underneath of him. All right. Probably better to watch it as opposed to listen to me try to explain it. So I believe this is our power play. You can really see how fast the kids break the huddle, get up to the line, and snap the ball. You'll see it again here every play 3 times. So center breaks first. We're sprinting up to the line, get set, boom, and we're off to the races. Not enough time for the defense to have checks. It is what it is. They are where they are. Okay, I think this is a trap play. This might be 12 trap here. Yep, you can see he just folds, and then that's a special player now. But that's what the trap can look like if they fold underneath. You'll see it here again. It hits fast. That's one of the things I like about it. All right, now what do we got here? This might be our toss. So if you look at the 2 down backs, the split backs, they're just running a dive with a lead. He's running off to scrape here, pick up that end. And that's an adjustment that you can add. I tried to run the toss a little bit more traditional. And I found that people weren't really biting on the dive as much. So we opted here. This is, I think, our 3rd or 4th game running the slot T, to just have that play side back just go seal that end off. Now this is our counter. So you can see the quarterback, he's got to clear out of the way for the counter. It's an underneath handoff. And that's all I got for the presentation piece. For recommendations for the slot T, I would just say implement what you think is going to be effective into your playbook, because when you see the language that the slot T guys use, it is a completely different language. And I almost didn't get into the slot T group on Facebook because he sent me a quiz and asked me what the name of the player was that got the ball on this play, and I didn't know because we didn't call him that. Called him something completely different. So it is a good community though. Teams are starting to run it. I think there's an Instagram account, Dan Casey. I think he's helped push a lot of the slot T stuff because he's posted it on his Instagram, and I think it's kind of sparked some interest. I think he's also posted a lot of Wishbone stuff as well. So um, I'm a big traditional offense guy. I think there's a lot of high school teams that could benefit from this type of offense. It's very simple, it's very effective, and there's enough room for you when you get a smart football player, especially on the offensive line, for them to be creative and exploit some of the stuff we talked about, like the pin pull stuff. So